And there is some of my Victory Garden. And there's some more of it in there. Lots of Victory Garden. And that's James's dinner.
That's
and
a
hot chocolate.
victory meal.
And I'm going to talk about Dogman. And there's a little Kinder Surprise Paw Patrol. Yeah, I brought that out.
I love those Kinder Surprises. I'm like a kid.
Yeah. So.
But that's what Kinder means in German. It means kids.
We tried to have a deck dinner earlier, but the camera
it kicked out after about a minute and a half.
No battery, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I had time to go do some other things, and I decided to watch this, have a little break, because I was very busy this morning potting little seedlings, as you could see there, into bigger pots, because a lot of them, I mean, you get to know when they need a bigger pot, because either if they're in a flat, then they're all crowded together and you're like, oh boy, no, I have to really do something about this. Or you're just having to water them all the time. If they're in an individual pot, then they need way more water. I just gotta deal with this. So one way or the other. Or sometimes with the tomatoes, they get so big they're almost making what they're hanging on to fall over.
Well, sometimes the tomatoes trail on the ground, and that's sometimes rot sets in or bugs start chewing it, things like that. No?
Yeah, in the garden, yeah. So I mean, it's I guess that's why people like to keep them in hoops and
stuff like
cages,
that. You know, generally the tomatoes don't do that because they're being willful or anything like that. But generally, they're very, very giving. Boy, there's a dog kibitzing in the background.
So, Dogman, it's maybe made for maybe
5-year-old
dog. Dog. Yeah, child to watch, and it's not that good. I didn't care for it at all, and I guess it's okay that it's only an hour and 20 minutes, because I don't know how, I don't know if a 4-year-old would really want to sit around for an hour and 20 minutes and watch it anyway. I mean, kids would rather, I mean, they like watching TV all day if you let them, but they like watching it on repeat, so I don't know if they like like a movie length of really much more than an hour.
So in other words, they like watching the same thing over and over again. Just so long as it's one of their favorites.
Yeah. At least that's every kid that I've known. It's Disney Fast Play. That really works for a lot of children.
You were saying you were that way about particular stories or poems or songs or things like that. Is that true? When you were young? I was
well,
a bit that
I
way.
really liked I liked a lot of the Disney stuff. I liked Sleeping Beauty a lot, because I liked the song. But Snow White's a great story too. But I preferred the song Once Upon a Dream.
I like the idea of the 7 dwarfs. I just like the idea that there were 7 different kind of personalities.
Oh, it's warm.
There it is.
So, plus 21 today, and I have my plants out enjoying some sun. But high of plus 4 tomorrow, so they won't be staying out.
I hope they soak up a lot of sun today. Yeah, I hope they get a good suntan or whatever.
Yeah, because they'll be inside tomorrow, and I don't have enough window space for everyone, so they're crowded around the windows, and they don't get enough. But
the big problem is how much back you've got for lugging them back and forth, because they've got to be getting heavier now, right?
They are getting heavier with more heat loss.
And there's more and more of them as well.
So, and another thing, I don't know if you can see the containers of peat moss on the other side of James,
Here.
but that's I don't know if it's in the camera shot.
It might not be.
But
That general direction.
Yeah. What you have to do when you get a bale or a bag of peat moss is you have to moisten the stuff before you're planting, right? So what I do is I put it in the containers that I use, like it could be the salad containers or croissant containers or stuff like that. I end up using those a lot for gardening. I use them as flats, and then I also use them for mixing up my peat moss with some water. And it's best to use hot water, but both will do. Like I could put some in, and I probably will. So put some in some containers, fill up all my containers, and put some water, and then just let it sit, and then it'll soak it in eventually. So there's my gardening tip for the day. Yeah, Dogman. I was kind of thinking, well, it's kind of a creepy idea anyway, but it's just not very good. I don't think I would have liked it when I was a little kid. Even 4 years old or 5. I think that's probably the target audience. I can't imagine anybody over 5 years old would want to watch this. I didn't like it. I had a hard time just sitting still and letting it play. So I did get up a few times and do other things because I just didn't like it. But it kind of reminded me of this, which I had forgotten about. I got these for James for Valentine's Day because they were more than 75% off. I can't remember what I paid for them, but I think it was 3 of them for less than $1 or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But here's one little dachshund wearing a pink outfit, and James likes this police dog. But
he looks a little bit like our one little dog, Elvis.
But
not as good as Elvis, but
no. And the other one disappeared, and I think I'm concerned that Elvis ate it. But
yeah, we would have known by now, I think. But
well,
it's quite a while back.
It might have went through him.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think he probably ate it because he was very interested in this, and then one of them disappeared. So anyway, but James was his favorite comic hero was Green Lantern. So
when I was young, like when I was about when was that, in Regina? When I was 5 to 8 years old, and then later on, still, it was when I was 10 to 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
During the breeding time between 8 and 10 years old, we didn't have comics. We were in Africa, and we were quite poor by North American standards. Even then, we had no stove to speak of. It was a wood stove, wooden stove, wood stove. It would be a wood stove, and with no running water, no electricity, no electrical lights. We had to depend on. You basically went to bed with the sun because we had some kerosene lamps that kind of. We'd light the lamps up, but that wouldn't last long. We would only be wasting money on kerosene. And for bathing, we had to boil our water in a huge big witch's cauldron in the backyard. For drinking, we'd have to boil the water too, but it would be in the cauldron. And we'd save the water in huge big tanks at the back of the house too, one at each of the back corners of our house. And towards the end of the dry season, the water got, even after boiling, it tasted awful because there were dead leaves that had collected in these big water tanks. and they left a dead leaf smell and stuff, even after it was boiled. Taste, really. Smell, taste, basically the same thing. Anyway, no comic books at all.
So I don't know if you could see this in the shot. I've pulled it over because I realized what inspired this poem that I'm going to read. It wasn't these, because I'd forgotten that these Paw Patrol things even existed. I got that for Valentine's Day for James, and I was like, oh, that reminds me of this. But I wrote this poem called Fur Babies on September 8th, 2024. And I'd meant to take Elvis in this stroller because somebody...
just left it around?
Yeah, a homeless guy was packing things in it. And then I guess he decided he couldn't pack very much in it, and he switched for a shopping cart that was in the alley here. So the shopping cart was gone, and then this was left behind. And
understand we had nothing to do with the shopping cart. That's something we never did.
It was just there.
People just leave stuff, take stuff from, oftentimes
so
stuff
I saw him leave it,
knows.
and I thought, okay. So because I had seen a woman around Henderson, she had the most wonderful little Yorkie. She was just darling.
The woman or the Yorkie?
Well, both were darling, but the Yorkie was just very small, and she was so sweet.
They're hugely small. It's incredible.
Yes. And so she had a stroller for the Yorkie, but the Yorkie was just running along, and she was pushing the stroller, and then if the Yorkie got tired, I guess she...
There you go.
The
Maybe on the way to the park and from it got into when it was less exciting.
Maybe. So anyway, we were just adoring her Yorkie. So sweet. And so then when I saw this, the homeless guy leave this, it reminded me of the little Yorkie, and I thought, well, maybe I would take Elvis in there, but I haven't. I haven't taken him.
That would be an adventure, but I think it would be kind of looking like an atomic nucleus wanting to explode.
Yes, he would be jumping against the sides. It would be moving all over. That's what I think, I don't think he would be well behaved like that Yorkie was. But anyway, so this poem was actually written before I this was left behind for me. It was right when I saw the little Yorkie. And I saw some people have cats in these. I've seen people with
that's
cats.
An amazing cat that would stay in there.
Yeah, well, they're all locked in. There's zippers and stuff. So.
Well, a lot of cats would get really in trouble and something like that.
Well, I've seen people have some success with these things and their pets and whatever.
Sometimes cats
maybe the pets
even ride in a car with some.
Yes. I mean, my parrot that I had, Maxie, she loved riding in the car. Mm-hmm. She'd put out her wings and pretend she was flying, and she'd laugh and laugh because she didn't have to work at it, right?
Oh, yeah. So were you saying that she'd get in between the
she'd sit on the back of the seat. On the, on the back.
But so what she would be doing is her wings would be out there, and she'd feel as though she was gliding, without having to wrap her wings.
She loved it. So anyway, I wrote this en syllabo de canción, fourth paean type of triple rhythm, and I guess I'll just read it to you, and I don't know how it'll go because I wrote it a long time ago. Lately I've seen some Paw Patrollers, kiddies about the town for fun. Many have been in Sunday strollers, happy no doubt. Human seems glad to push each kitty stroller around beneath the sun. Many have had these prams on city trails that I've found. Kitties don't think their prams a prison that they should tear apart. Not one. None make a stink. No yells have risen into the air. Since when outside, most take it easy. Kitties aren't bored till strolls are done. All like to ride in prams, though cheesy. All get aboard. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it would have been challenging, I'm telling you. Did you set your own?
No, you would have set this for me.
Now, you did that in 2004, but I wasn't giving you.
No, you would have
Extra
said it
shit
in
by that.
2020
Yeah, exactly.
for me.
And she held on to it, and
Yeah.
it sounds pretty good. It
Yeah.
sounds very song-like. Yep.
I don't know.
Speaking of song-like, that bird, he just lit into that tune once he heard you reciting. You see, he wants to sing it.
But actually, this, I don't know if I'll ever get any use out of this. I maybe should just put it back in the alley where I found it.
Oh, it'll disappear.
I know.
Yeah.
Somebody will
I'm
take
amazed
it
it
to
hasn't disappeared
collect
off the
bottle.
deck.
So you have 13 minutes to talk about whatever you were going to talk about.
The Civil War. Soon to be renewed, I'm afraid, in the United States, thanks to the depredations of Donald Dump. Yeah, I was saying his name, his maiden, his family name was Dump, and that was probably wishful thinking. That actually has a meaning in German, Dumpf. I looked that up if you care to. Don't care to, that's okay by me. D-U-M-P-F, Dumpf. But apparently, it's kind of not selective memory, but creative memory. Drumpf, maybe, as someone was telling me recently. D-R-U-M-P-F, Drumpf. That's what one of his ancestors was called. And somewhere along the line, one of his ancestors changed the name from Drumpf. And that's what someone told me. They could have got it wrong, but I think they're right. And to Trump. Anyway, Civil War. I think that's what Putin has planned for the United States, an ideal state. It's the old thing, play, divide, and conquer. And he's playing it. Putin is in Europe. And so far it's just worked at chipping England out of the European Union, and Orban having him still in the European Union, but he doesn't belong there. It's a scumbag. So the last time I heard, he's the head of Hungary. The Hungarians should know better, but they're the wrong side in World War II, wrong side in World War I. And I guess they haven't, ultimately, I guess they're on the wrong side in the Cold War, World War III. Although they didn't have much choice there, they tried to get rid of the commies in 1956 with decided lack of success, and that's because the commies were in enlightened fashion, came in there and stomped the Hungarians. So can't blame them for being on the wrong side there. Right? They're on the wrong side right now. And hopefully they end up on the outside looking and kicked out of the European Union, and then they can go crawling off like worms to Orban and company, to the guy who's inspired them, uninspired them, Vladdy Putin. 8 minutes?
No, you have 10.
And a half. That's awesome. Anyway, I thought I'd gone through this all, but I've been going through checking off entries. So this is the Civil War Dictionary, put up by McKay, the author, Boatner, McKay Publishers, probably out of New York. There we go, David McKay, Incorporated, New York. Put out initially sometime, I think in 55, and then a new edition maybe in the 80s, or just reprinted. So 1959, that was off by 4 years there. And in the 80s, 1988, and it looks like it was a new edition. So Boatner did a great job here. The thing that I'm enjoying reading is how many Germans were fighting. Lots of people are going around saying Germans are awful. So Susan Sontag came out and said the white race, something like this, the white race is a cancer of humanity or something like that. Hopefully she's dead, and she should have died of embarrassment. You hear that, Susan Sontag, if you're still alive? Die of embarrassment. That's a shameful little formulation. I don't know whether she considers herself part of the white race or not. I suspect she's Jewish. And someone who's Jewish should know better. There are Germans have been very bad to Jews. In my dad's lifetime. Like, but for 1,400 years, a certain religious group has been very bad to Jews. The founder of the religion, wiped out one whole tribe of Jews, or at least all the males, adult males, turned the rest, the survivors, into slaves, the women into sex slaves, and the children into, just slaves. That was after ethnically cleansing 2 of those tribes, and he died in the process of, at the very least, trying to ethnically cleanse a 4th tribe. But my suspicion is, given the downward trend of his ethical behavior, he would wipe them out too. And then not his first successor, but his second successor, ethnically cleansed all the Jews out of their homeland. And their homeland's quite large. It's about a quarter of the size of the United States. I'm not making that up. Look on a globe. On a Mercator map, it's not going to look that way because it's closer to the equator. The Mercator maps scrunch up things to the equator, close to the equator, so they look much smaller than they are relative to things closer to the poles. For example, the United States. Anyway, looking through here, and I was amazed. I didn't realize, German, born in Germany, fighting for the Union guys, not for the bad guys in the South. And then Hungary, fighting for the Union guys. Poland, guy from Poland, fighting for the Union guys. And then I start looking at their biographies. They're abbreviated here, quite sure. Oh, so many of them, almost all of them, aside of the German ones from Pennsylvania, were born in Pennsylvania, were losers in the Revolutionary Wars of 1848, the failed revolutions across much of Europe. Some didn't have attempted revolutions. In England, for example. Anyway, they were actually fighting on the good side, on the right side. 1848, many of them, I suspect, were fighting on the right side. Many of the people, I don't think that one was yelling, shut up. I hope not. But, and I'd already kind of suspected this, but it firmed up my idea, maybe even almost my belief now, that the American Civil War was a second revolution in American history. The first one being what's called the War of Independence by right-wingers. And people in the center, maybe many in the left wing, have gone along with, it's a War of Independence. Yes, it was, but it's also a revolution. Because there were very few peasants that actually made it to the New World initially, into the United States and Canada. There wasn't the same sort of class thing. Everyone is kind of like middle class, or majority, and there wasn't an aristocracy, and the United States and Canada benefited. Same thing happened to Australia. Same thing happened in New Zealand. One of the reasons why England fell behind those other countries I mentioned, everywhere at least except New Zealand, is because they still maintained something like a class system. And so you had these bumheads, pardon my partial French, Winston Churchill is an example. One of his ancestors was a big war hero around the time of Louis XIV, near the end. I think that's around 1700, maybe a few years later. And I think he was called the Duke of Marlborough, Winston Churchill's ancestor. He's a duke. You should see the estate that guy had. And I suspect Winston Churchill inherited that. Anyway, the class system. Winston Churchill's a classic example of how that class system doesn't work. pretty lousy prime minister when it came to domestic matters and when it came to inspiring people, I guess, fighting World War II. He's pretty good. I don't think he was nearly the writer he's given credit for being. He won a Nobel Prize for, I guess it was for literature. I don't know. Pretty sure it wasn't for peace, as he was pretty diehard when it came to foreign policy and the British colonies. He was prime minister, stuff like that. No, from a different age, kind of like the most recent 19th century kind of attitude to things. Anyway, Second American Revolution. And my formulation up until, just the last few weeks or something like that was there have only been 2 successful revolutions in relatively modern time, since the Renaissance, shall we say. One was in England, and that was their second revolution. They had 2 before any other country had any. And the first one was a miserable failure. That's Oliver Cromwell. You can check it up. It turned into a tyranny. And that's what traditionally happened when they had revolutions, and yes, they did. In classical, kind of like pre-classical Greece, they'd almost every city-state in Greece had a revolution, got rid of their kings, and then they proceeded to have a tyranny. Some progressed beyond the tyranny to having a democracy. Athens is a classic case, and if you don't believe me, check it out. It's a matter of historical record. And really, I consider the American War of Independence or Revolution as being a third English Revolution, and it was successful. And what do we mean by successful? The second English Revolution ended up in being borderline democratic. In other words, there was democracy for people with certain qualifications, property qualifications, etc., etc. But it was successful enough that it kept on expanding the right to vote. And it took a long time. That was something like 1688, 89, and women in England didn't get the right to vote until after World War II, as I recall. I was around. I recall it. No, I'm not that old. My dad might have seen that, right? He was born in 1922, and he only died a couple of years back. He's almost 100 years old. So it took a long time, but it showed this path of increasing democracy. United States, their first revolution was amazingly successful, and that's due largely to George Washington. So many revolutionary leaders, well, they all since George Washington, except for Abraham Lincoln. Now I see him as a revolutionary. They all just want to hold on to power like pit bulls onto your hand when they get hold of you. You have to shoot them through the head in order to get rid of the pit bull, and that's the same thing with revolutionary leaders. Mao Zedong, he died in office. Stalin died in office. Lenin died in office. Not John Lennon. He kind of died in office, I guess. Anyway, it's more like missing in action, thanks to Yoko Ono and various drugs, mainly heroin, I think. But yeah, so and there have been all sorts of revolutions. I mean, what happened in 1947 in India was a revolution. It was a peaceful revolution because England got out of it peacefully. It was, as far as I can tell, prematurely. India wasn't ready for independence. It wasn't ready for freedom. And we can see now the fruits of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's little peaceful, very successful attempt at getting rid of the English. Like Mohandas